Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Well, Dr. Putnam said you're progressing.
Well, I finally got her to communicate.
Well, she's authorized me to communicate with y'all and to work with y'all. So if you got something, send it. I
Okay.
need to
Okay.
remind Loretta as well.
Okay.
So I'm glad to do whatever I can do.
I don't think she understands she, I don't know. She just told me she didn't know why I was doing a focus group. She said, "But I'm gonna leave it alone if that's between you and Dr. Lamb. I don't know why you're doing a focus group." So
Well, looking at it's all about your sample. If you
mm-hmm.
have a bimodal, if you have like teachers and administrators, you need to do a focus group. That's kind
Mm-hmm.
of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is for us. Now, I know that EDCI can just send whatever in and he approves that. I get that. But that would, there's no way that we could get that approved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of the whole process of having a bimodal distribution in your sample is to compare and contrast their views or their perceptions. That's the whole idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have a focus group. If you've got 10 teachers in your group, we just do interviews till we hit data saturation and we quit. But we don't, if you've got people that the different perspectives on the same issue, then that's when you use a focus group. That's why you do it. That's why it's called a focus group, to get a focus on the problem. I mean, how many times? I don't think y'all are old enough to remember this.
I don't know. We might.
Hopefully you're not old enough to remember this. Back maybe, I think it was maybe in the 70s when you would have these teacher meetings. That's back before we even did teacher evaluations or any of that stuff. But when they'd have teacher meetings, they'd do these warm up activities. They still do them in EDCI, or they do these little get to know you icebreakers,
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. And do you
Mm-hmm.
remember the one about the elephant? That they would blindfold people, or the idea was to blindfold people and have them touch something. And the metaphor was an elephant. It's completely different if you described the elephant from what you would be completely different if you touch the side of the elephant or the trunk or the tail. And the whole idea is diversity of perspectives, that you're supposed to respect everybody's and that everybody's is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're standing around an elephant as big as an elephant is, everybody's perspective is not going to be the same. And we used to do little fun activities to try to get everybody to understand that, to respect other people's opinions and diversity and all that stuff. But I guess we don't do that anymore. But the whole idea of a focus group is when you have two, sometimes opposing groups in the same sample, it's good
Mm-hmm.
for them to get together. Um, that's as basic to qualitative work as there is. I mean, that's one of the core principles of qualitative work.
Yeah. I
It's driven by your sample. Now, what she really means is why are you overcomplicating this? In EDCI, they just get 6 or 8 teachers and they just keep interviewing them till they hit data saturation and go on about their business. But we don't have the luxury of doing that. We don't work only with teachers. We have to inform the organization. We have to have a
Dr. Lamb.
broader perspective.
Uh, Never mind.
We have to have a broader perspective. There's Lauren. Then we have to make sure that we're speaking from a district perspective. And out in the school building, you have teachers and principals. EDCI, they just speak from the teacher perspective. That's all they have to inform. So what she really meant is, why in the world would you do that? Well, because we're speaking to a wider audience. That's why we're doing it this way. At the end of the day, your study will be much better,
mm-hmm.
and your district, now whether they use it or not is up to them.
Mm-hmm.
But we certainly want to do studies that could inform your district and add some value. I'm not saying they do or they will, but we'd like to do some that could.
Mhm.
because we're training you to be superintendent and work in the central office, and this is how you do stuff. You don't just go ask one person or one group. You try to get a different perspective. Um, I've got I've got one. I've told you in Gaffney, South Carolina. Didn't I share cars with you? We're doing teachers. We're doing
Mhm.
core and elective teachers and administrators. We're doing three groups, and he's doing his focus group Monday during the workday because we're looking at intervention programs in high school. And boy, I tell you, you can't hardly find people with different perspectives in core and elective teachers on interventions. Um, you know, the even if core teachers like them, um, they resent having to do them. Elective teachers love interventions because their students aren't, they don't have to put up. A lot of times, kids are in intervention and they don't have to deal with it, especially the ones that are knuckleheads.
Mhm.
They get kept back to do intervention, and so they don't come to them for their elective like art or music. Elective teachers love intervention, love it. They'd rather have intervention than eat. Core teachers, most of them hate it. But at some point we have to we need to get the perspective, and whatever solution we have needs to be something that would be equitable for both groups. And then administrators have a third one perspective. Now, if I was sitting like it, I'll just use Lauren for example, and go back in time 35 years to when I was a middle school principal. If I was a middle school principal today, I would be incensed that teachers couldn't understand that if we're doing intervention, it means we've already failed. Let's get better the first time around rather than trying to fix it on the back end on intervention. See, that's the part that would just drive me nuts as a principal. Is you're planting defeat into into your process here. You're planting defeat in. Here's an idea. Let's get better at what we do, assess our students better, and not have to do all this intervention. Now it's just like we just accept that we're kids are not going to learn anything first time around. We're going to have to do intervention. Why do we have to accept that premise? Why can't we be better? Why can't it's assessment drive instruction, and we do a better job. I talked to one of my colleagues today, and he's retired from Gardner Webb and gone into teaching in South Carolina. Um, and he's an English teacher, and he said the district people came in and he showed him he'd run a regression. Basically, he did EVOS, and his kids were on track. And said they were just amazed. And he said that 2/3 of ours are already meeting their goals, and by the time we've got our plan by the time the end of the year. And what he was saying is we're not going to have to do intervention. We're trying to plan for success along the way. We're not going to let them fail first or wait till the end of the year to figure out they don't know anything. What a novel concept. I'm just amazed. And so, but middle school is the place that's just, in my opinion, today, I see the biggest defeatist attitude that, they're not going to get it. We're going to have to do intervention. And they just accept mm, uh, I could not abide that. Yeah, that would make me angry. Lauren, you want to comment on that? No.
I think if done well, interventions are done within the core class period, right? Like,
Assessment drives instruction. You do your
correct,
intervention as you go if you understand the concept of assessment drives instruction. I'm
correct. And
talking
then
about
you're pulling
test.
small groups and providing intervention within the core.
There you
And
go.
so
Assessment drives instruction. You do your
yep,
intervention as you go because you assess kids
that's how
as you
we do
go.
it.
But see, what I'm talking about is the places that don't do anything. Wait for the testing period, and then when the test comes back, then we got to do intervention. No, I'm not
No, we
talking
don't do
about
that.
testing drives instruction. Assessment. You're assessing as you go, and you do your interventions as you go. in your classroom. You don't do a pull out. You don't have, half the kids going to PE and the other half staying in for, math. You do it. Assessment drives instruction. That means you teach and you reteach as you go, and you flexible group within your
Yep,
group.
correct.
I mean, what happened to that? I thought I did that 35 years ago when I was a middle school principal. What happened to all that stuff? We quit doing that, I guess, now, or we don't want to, or
I think it somewhere. I don't know where the ball got dropped. We know exactly what you're talking about, Dr. Lamb, but I promise you, all these different and Shaquetta knows and Loretta, we go in and out of these schools, and it is just like, oh my God,
they
like
don't do any of that. They think assessment is just testing.
right,
No, it's not. That's not what assessment is.
So, so can I say that in elementary, there's no time because they mandated all these integrity foundations and geodes, and that takes up their whole day. And
Yeah.
there's no more time in elementary. And teachers are like, I need my time. I need time. There is no time because they
Hmm.
have to stay on pace and they have to complete this lesson. And so there's no time for that anymore,
Yeah, but if you're just covering,
unfortunately.
if you're pitching and they're not catching it, what's the point? The pacing guide's the worst thing to ever happen in school. Um, But that's what I was talking about. Jeff and I were talking today. He had a plan. They were mapping their own kids themselves, the teachers, where they are, what they're doing, what they needed to change in the room. The assessment driving instruction. They weren't talking about doing an outside intervention or bringing somebody in or doing that. They were talking about in their classes. They do it as they go. They assess their kids on a daily basis. Yeah, he's got this, no, and so what they do is they 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 use AI to assess the writing. Have they met this standard or not? And they do that as they go. Even in high school, he's a high school 10th grade teacher. They made a little over one standard. They made 6 points a game last year, and they said 2/3 of their kids that have already in the block schedule, which will be up in what they still got 6 weeks left in the block schedule, or in the fall. So 2/3 of them they're already riding above the standard, and they are on track for all their kids within the next 6 weeks to get there. But they're monitoring them daily. They feed their work in, they assess it, they redo the lessons. They're not. He said we don't. I mean, and I know Jeff. They don't care. A hoot and a holler about the pacing guide. They understand what their objectives are, and if we need to stop and do this, we stop and do this. Assessment drives instruction, not a pacing guide. Boy, I'm telling you, we've completely lost our mind
I
about.
require my tested teachers to do common formative assessments every single week,
Yes.
every week, so that we
Yeah.
have that data and then we can regroup and
Hmm.
reteach as needed. But it's one of my non-negotiables. We do a
Absolutely.
CFA every single week.
Absolutely. When I was in,
Yep.
again, I guarantee you that was a non-negotiable for me. We got
Yep.
to know where these kids are. Every week you need to know where they are. And so when Jeff was at Gardner Webb, we developed that plan that he's using now. And he's trying to get Cherokee County schools to understand it, that you don't need all these interventions if you assess and teach as you go. Now, quite coincidentally, that's the same county where we're assessing their high school interventions, which it's not, they're not going to be happy when they see the data on what teachers think about their intervention strategies. Well, nobody likes them anywhere because they don't work. They're after the fact. They're after the fact. Uh, well, it's 7:15. I've wasted enough of our time here on the rants. It's time for us to get started. Loretta, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Did you see the email I sent you?
Yes, I got it. I'm doing. I'm going to pass it on.
Yeah, put what you got in my assignment 3 in my shell. You're enrolled in there, so I can get a beat on you. She's asked me to. She's going to let me work with y'all some now.
Okay, I sure will.
That sounds good. All right. Let's see. And Jimmy has arrived. All right. So tonight is Shaquetta. She is our capable guide for the evening. She is our leader tonight. And so I will turn off my camera so she can share her screen and we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Jimmy, glad that you're here. Hope everything's well with you. You have an update you want to share with us tonight?
Yeah, my wife, she's doing better. I mean, her body been aching all over and everything, but she's doing a whole lot better. And I thank you for asking.
Good. We prayed for her. She's on the prayer list. I put her on the prayer list at Gardner Webb. I'm sorry I couldn't. I was in the middle of homecoming festivities. I had to work homecoming this past Saturday when you called the band and the parade, and we were manning a tent and a table, and we had a barbecue competition. And so um, I don't know where all the young people are that should have been there. I guess they were at home with their families. So I got out and pressed the flesh and did meet and greets and skinning and grinning on Saturday. And then the football team laid an egg, but that's how it goes. All right, Shaquetta,
All right. Can you guys hear me?
we can.
Okay. So tonight I'm going to talk about chapters 13, 14, and 15. Chapter 13 talks about bidding the construction project. And then 14 is alternative contracting plans and commissioning of schools. And then 15 is managing the construction phase. So for chapter 13, Earthman is very clear that bidding is not just about finding the lowest number. It's a comprehensive system designed to achieve several key goals. First and foremost, it's about fiscal responsibility because we are stewards of public funds and we must spend them wisely. Second, it ensures fair competition, creating a level playing field so that no qualified contractor is unfairly excluded. Third, and this is crucial, it allows us to select a qualified builder, a firm with the experience and capacity to actually deliver the school we designed. And finally, a transparent and rigorous process is our best defense against legal challenges and protests. So let's look at bidding documents. So this is like a rule book. The bid documents are the legally binding sets of instructions and requirements for the project that consists of the plans, which are the drawings, and then the specifications, which they call specs. The specs are a written guide detailing the quality, standards, and materials to use. So these are critical because bidding documents ensure quality. So the specs prevent contractors from substituting cheap, subpar materials. They legally enforce the quality you expect. For example, brand X carpet with 10-year warranty versus just putting carpet, or latex water-based or oil-based paint versus just putting paint. So bidding documents, it kind of creates a level playing field. Every bidder is pricing the exact same project, eliminating vagueness and unfair advantages. And then also these documents become the contract once it is awarded. So the quality of your bid documents directly determines the quality of your bids and the success of your project. So then we're going to talk about pre-qualifications of the bidders, a proactive process to screen contractors before they are allowed to bid is pre-qualifications of bidders. It assesses their capacity to actually handle your specific project. It prevents problems. It stops unqualified, underfinanced, or inexperienced contractors from submitting a low bid that you are legally pressured to accept. It also protects the project. It ensures that only responsible bidders are in the pool, safeguarding the project from failure. And then it saves time. It streamlines the bid analysis process by weeding out unfit candidates early. So pre-qualification is your most effective tool for ensuring the lowest bidder is also a qualified bidder. Then the procedure for bidding. So this is the public, it's kind of like a step-by-step process. The public has to be noticed, so it has to be advertised. A public notice is placed in a newspaper and trade journals announcing the project and where to get the bid documents. Then there's a pre-bid conference and a site walkthrough. So there's a mandatory meeting for all potential bidders. This is for question and answering and ensuring that everyone has the same understanding. And then you do bid submission. So the contractors submit their sealed bids by a strict deadline. And after that, there's public bid opening where the bids are publicly open and read aloud. This ensures transparency again. And then we go through the bid analysis. The architect and the school administration, which is the superintendent and his people, analyze the bids for responsiveness, completeness, and accuracy. So the team recommends the lowest responsible and responsive bidder to the school board, which makes the final official award. So a transparent procedure is your best defense against protest, and it ensures a result that is both fair and legally defensible. Then we move to the bonding. So bonding is non-negotiable risk management. I think Earthman said it was kind of like a financial safety net. And there are three key types. So you have the bid bond, which is a guarantee submitted with the bid. The purpose is to ensure if a bidder wins, that they will honor their bid price and enter into the contract. And then if they bid back out, the bond amount is forfeited to the district to cover the cost of the rebidding. Then you have the performance bond, which is a guarantee, usually 100% of the contract price, which is provided after the award. And then the purpose of it is to protect the district if the contractor fails to perform, if it goes bankrupt, or if it abandons the project. So the bonding company must then step in to finance the completion of the project. And then you move to the payment bond, which is a guarantee provided after the award as well. And it protects the district from liens. It ensures that all subcontractors and material suppliers are paid. So if the contractor doesn't pay them, they cannot place a lien on your public school property. They must go after the bond instead. So never waive the bonding requirement. The bid bond ensures seriousness, the performance bond ensures completion, and the payment bond protects you from liens. This is your financial insurance policy. So then it also talked about the contract, and that's putting it all together. So the final executed agreement between the school board, who are considered the owners, and the selected contractor. So the bottom line is the contract formalizes the entire process. It legally binds the contractor to build what is described in the bid document for the bid price within the bid time and under the protection of the bonds. So that was chapter 13. All right, so for chapter 14, they talked about alternative contracting plans. So these are the different alternatives. They call it the P3 or the public-private partnerships. And this is kind of like the turnkey model, a long-term contract where the private entity finances, designs, builds, and often maintains or operates a school facility. So the public school district then leases the building for 25 to 30 years. So how it works, the district partners with a private developer. The private partner uses its own capital or financing to build the school. The district makes annual availability payments, like a lease, for the duration of the contract. And then the private partner is responsible for long-term maintenance. So some pros is the district can build schools without upfront bond money, which transferring the financial and maintenance risk to the private partners. And so speed can be a major advantage, but a con, you have to give up significant control and it's often more expensive in the long run because the contracts are extremely complex. It's like a long-term mortgage with a built-in property manager.
Can I have you pause right there for a second?
Yes, sure.
All right. One of the issues with this particular is when you enter into this public-private partnership, where do you get the money to pay the rent? The rent.
Mhm.
You're basically renting, you're leasing or renting. You're making a rental payment. Part of the problem with that and why this is used so rarely, I'm not sure it's used any in fully public. Well, I know it's not used any in fully public schools in North Carolina because of is rent really capital? I mean, where would the money come from? You can't let a bond to pay rent.
Right.
And a lot of times, again, your county commissioners have to be the one that approved the bond going on the ballot, and they have to show how it's going to be paid either through a luxury tax, a vacation tax, a property tax, or a sales tax. I mean, and a lot of times they won't do that on something that's rent and that they're not going to own. Think about that now. Shaquetta just told you the problem is you don't own it. Well, if you don't own it, is it really capital? And will the county commissioners give you money, tax dollars for rent? And the answer is no. They won't give you tax dollars for rent. Now, some public charter schools are doing something like this. But traditional public schools, I am not, well, I am. Nobody's doing this traditional because they can't get the money to pay the rent. They can't get the money to pay the rent. This is mostly charters are doing this. All right, moving on.
Okay. So the next one is the job order contracting. So this is kind of like the maintenance super sub. It's an indefinite quantity contract for a wide variety of repair, renovations, and minor construction projects. So how it works is there's a unit price book, for example, cost per square foot to paint or per light fixture to install. It's agreed upon upfront. And a contractor is selected for a multi-year term. So for each work order or job order, the price is calculated using the pre-negotiated rates. And then the projects can be issued in days and versus months. So that's the job order contracting. And then they have the design build contracting. So this is kind of like the one-stop shop. The school district hires a single entity, the design build team, to handle both the design and the construction under one contract. So the architect and the builder work together from day one as a team. The district provides the educational specifications, which is what they want, and then the team figures out the how. This allows for real-time cost feedback and value engineering during the design phase. So this is a single point of responsibility, faster delivery, and often fewer change orders due to collaboration between the designer and the builder. But the district has less direct control over the design details. The selection process is based on qualifications and value, not just low bid, requiring a savvy selection committee. And so then it's the performance contracting. This is the pay as you save model. It's a financial mechanism where the cost of energy efficient upgrades is paid for by the guaranteed savings on utility bills. So an energy service company conducts an audit and guarantees a specific amount of energy savings. So the ESCO installs the new equipment, the lighting, the HVAC, the controls, the windows, and the money saved on your utility bills is used to pay the ESCO for the project over the contract term. So the pro is there's no upfront capital cost. It's the primary tool for modernized aging infrastructure. It improves comfort and reduces your operational budget. But the guarantee is only as good as the ESCO. The contracts are complex, and the project or the projected savings depends on your utility rates and the usage patterns. And last for this chapter, they talked about commissioning of the schools. So this is a process for verifying and documenting that all building systems are designed, installed, and function according to the school district's operational needs. So it's a third-party independent check that runs the entire project cycle or life cycle of pre-design, design, construction, and then occupancy. So it ensures the building you get is the building you paid for. It protects the learning environment, like the air quality, the temperature, the light, and it saves money by finding problems when they are cheap to fix. So a con is it adds a small upfront cost of 1 to 3% of the construction, but it pays for itself many times over in avoided problems and operational efficiencies. So that was it for chapter 14. So for chapter 15, Earthman states after the successful bidder is identified and the school board votes to accept the bid, a contract is executed with the winning firm to complete the building project. So the bidder deposits a performance bond, and the firm gives the school board a payment bond, which guarantees all payments to workers, suppliers, and vendors so that liens cannot be placed against the completed building. So the goal is to understand the critical oversight activities from the moment the shovel hits the ground until the keys are handed over. So supervising the project, this is the district's eyes and ears. The school district cannot be passive owners during the construction. They have to actively supervise to protect their investment. So key players are the school board, and they set the policies, they approve major changes and payments. They make the ultimate, or they have the ultimate authority. And then the superintendent and the administration, this is the board's representatives ensuring the project meets the educational needs. And then you have a clerk of the works. This is the most critical role for the day-to-day supervision. This is an independent on-site inspector hired by the district to represent its interests. And then you have your architect and engineer, and their technical representatives who design the project and interpret the contract's document. So the clerk of works is your full-time on-site watchdog. They do not work for the contractor. Their job is to observe, document, and report to ensure everything is built according to the plans and specifications. So this is your primary tool for quality control. So then they talked about construction management. So there are two approaches. Earthman outlines two primary ways to structure the management of the project itself. The general contractor method, and which is the traditional method. You have one prime contractor who manages all the subcontractors. The district's point of contact is singular, and the GC is responsible for the entire project schedule and quality. And you also have a construction manager method. So the district hires a construction manager as the additional advisor alongside the architect. So the CM acts as the district's agent, providing expert advice on scheduling, cost control, and construction methods from pre-design through the completion of the project. This is especially valuable for your complex projects. So the general contractor method gives you a single point of responsibility, while the construction manager method gives you an independent expert on your team to help manage that responsibility, often leading to better cost and schedule control. All right, so here's the budget killer, the managing change orders. So a change order is any modification to the original contract after it has been signed. So, of course, unforeseen things could happen, like rocks or contaminated soil. There may be some errors or some omissions in the plans, or owner requested changes, such as we decided we want a different type of floor tile. And I think Karis had brought up one time about the board wanting different seats for our new high school, or the different goals. So those type of things. So the critical process is all changes requests must be in writing from the contractor. The architect and the clerk of works review the necessity, validity, and cost of those changes. And for any change order above a preset monetary threshold, for example, $5,000 or 1% of the contract, the school board must approve the change. So this is a non-negotiable physical control. And only after the approval is a formal signed change order issue, adjusting the contract price and or the timeline. So maintain strict formal control over change orders. Require board approval for significant changes. Excessive change orders may indicate that the architectural drawings were not in sufficient details or that the materials requested were not readily available. Then he moves to school board and contractor relationships. This relationship is contractual, not personal. So the goal is professional respect and clear communication. So the school board should never communicate directly with the contractor or subcontractors. Earthman says all communication must flow through the designated channels: the contractor, the architect, and the clerk of works, the school administration, and then the school board. The board's role is to set policy, excuse me, and approve major decisions, not to manage the day-to-day work. So micromanagement can create liability and undermine the administration and the architect. So then he talks about the contract and the payment options. This is the how and when you pay the contractor. There's two type of contract types. It's the stipulated sum, which is a fixed price, a single fixed price for all the work. It's the lowest risk for the owner if the plans are complete. And then you have the cost plus fee. And the owner pays for the actual cost of the labor and the materials, plus a fixed fee or percentage to the contractor. This is a higher risk for the owner unless a guaranteed maximum price is included. So as for the payments, the contractor submits a monthly application for payment based on the completed work. The clerk of works and the architect verify that the work claimed is 100% complete and conforms to the specs. The administration reviews it and recommends payment to the school board. The school board officially approves the payment and then always retain retainage until final completion to ensure leverage. So this is key. Never pay for work that has not been verified as complete and correct. The monthly pay application review is your primary financial control mechanism. So after that, there's the acceptance of the building, which is the final act. This is the formal process of taking ownership of the building. So near the end of the project, the clerk, the architect and engineer, and the district staff conduct a final walkthrough to create what is called a punch list of incomplete or defective work. It's kind of like when you purchase a house, you go through and you look for paint touch-ups, door adjustments, leaking faucets. So the building is not accepted until that punch list is complete. So once the punch list is 100% finished, all as-built drawings and operation manuals are submitted. All warranties and guarantees are provided. The certificate of occupancy is issued, and the school board passes a formal resolution of final acceptance. That's when it's completed and you can do your final payment. So do not accept the building or release final payment until every item is complete to your satisfaction. Your leverage disappears once the final check is cashed. All right, that's it for chapters 13 through 15.
All right, thank you. You can stop your share. And to be redundant, you remember the story that I told you last week about the punch list that I inherited at Olympic High School? They had paid out all but $100,000, thinking they would hold $100,000 in reserve for the punch list. Cabarrus Construction guy came in and said, "There's over $1 million worth on here. Good luck." We don't care if you give us the last $100,000 or not. We're not going to spend over $1 million to get 100,000. And that's what Chiquetta was just talking about. I highly recommend, as somebody who's been in the business, I highly recommend not do clerk of the works. I highly recommend construction management firm. And again, she talked about the monthly draws, that the check shouldn't be cut. You need somebody that does that full time and is out there every day watching that project to know what percent. I mean, you can get faked out on percentages real easily. This looks pretty good, but there's only a little bit left. Well, that little bit takes as much time. The little stuff takes as much time as the big stuff. And if you don't know that kind of stuff, if you're not doing it every day, you can completely misjudge what percentage is completed. And and part of the problem is a lot of districts will try to not do a clerk of the work or a construction management, and they'll rely on the general contractor. Well, they're always going to tell you that they're further along than that was the Cabarrus construction deal. They'll always tell you that they're further along than they are because they're always wanting you to pay ahead. And certain things cost a lot more than you think. I'll give you an example. Let me see if I can Google it for you to show you an example of what I'm talking about. Let me share my screen. I'll give you a concrete. Now, this is I understand kind of a one-off or a non sequitur, but this will hopefully amplify my point. Let me go to Lowe's. All right. This is a standard piece right here. Fascia board is trim, one piece, 12 foot long, costs $70. When you're doing the eaves of a roof and all around the house, and it looks like you're almost done, um, if you don't know the cost of things, um, I recently redid my house here. Let me stop my share now. Now listen carefully to what I have to say. It cost as much to put the fascia as the roof. It looked like it was 95%, but now I knew that. But the roof looked to be 95% complete. All I had to do was trim it out and fascia. The cost of the fascia was as much as the cost of the shingles for the entire roof. And if you'd looked at that project, you said, well, it's about 95%. It was only 50% in terms of the cost. You can't confuse cost and work completion. That again, you got to know this kind of stuff. Well, you can't expect principals to know this. You have a clerk of the works that's here and there and everywhere and probably got some other job. This is how you get cost overruns. This is how you let a bond to build 4 schools and you're out of money at 2 or 2.5. Now here's another little secret. I'm still with you. Change orders. Now I ran into this issue in Burke County. when I was in the central office there. You see that stuff's costing you more than you thought. Prices go up, disasters hit, materials. I mean, stuff just costs more. And you say, well, we'll do a change order instead of doing terrazzo. We'll do concrete. Cost half as much, but the change order, by the time you do it, it ends up costing you more, and you get lower quality stuff because you did a change order. You got to be careful about change orders. Usually, any savings that you would get in swapping out the materials is more than taken up by the change, the cost, the price of the change. So I hear people all the time, well, we'll just switch to something cheaper. Well, but that won't stop the cost. You'll have to pay the cost of the change order. And so these are the, and I don't care how good you are, you need to let professionals do this part. Because again, I can't tell you the number of superintendents that have, and people in the central office who got fired over stuff like this. Construction projects are a big part of what goes on at an institution, at a school district, at an institution. And if you're not, even if you've done it, if you're not doing it every day, all day, you need not to get involved in it. I like that Shaquetta talked about all the different kinds of contracts, the bids, all those kinds of things. Um, I would go a step further and say that I would hire a company to handle all that as well. The construction management people will do that for you as well. It's money well spent. It'll save you money and time, much, and time is money in construction in the long run. Everybody thinks they know. The board attorney doesn't know that stuff. And if you have to let that stuff out, you need to let professionals handle this stuff, is my best advice from having been burned and been involved in this for a long time, on that side of the aisle. It is not, it's not for the faint of heart. And you don't want to deal with most of the people that you're going to run into, you don't want to deal with. Um, Especially now with what's going on with the immigration crackdown, you don't want to be involved, with who's coming to your buildings and doing that work. That you need to have a layer of insulation away from that as well, because a lot of there's a lot of illegals in the construction business, and you don't want to get caught up in that racket right now either. Um, and so it's a necessary evil. Construction of facilities is, but there are steps that you can take to mitigate those, that you need to take. And at the end of the day, you will save money and time and headache in the long run if you do that. Well, that's the big rocks in those kinds of things. Again, that building and leasing deal would work for a charter school maybe, but not so much for a public school. There's again, where are you going to get the money to pay? We don't like paying rent with tax money. There's legal issues with that. So um, those are there are other issues with that as well in terms of governance and ownership and usage, and I won't go into all of that, but that's not something that I would pursue. I definitely would not pursue that. All right. Questions that you have tonight. Shaquetta, excellent job. We should be all well informed on the pitfalls of construction management. It's not something you want to get into unless that's your business. That's the takeaway for me. All right. So what's our weekly schedule? Let me share my screen. I believe we have one more meeting, and that will be next Thursday. Jimmy has the floor. And then after that, we will meet Saturday the 8th and the 9th in Goldsboro. Where did we say we were going to go to lunch on Saturday? We could always go to McCall's. It's fairly close to the campus there, and you know, they have a buffet style. You can get, they got a nice salad bar, and they got stuff that you can get for lunch. They got seating where we can kind of sit together. Let's think about going to McCall's on Saturday the 8th. And then we'll have one last class on the 20th, right before the Thursday, the week before Thanksgiving, and we should be done. We'll try not to meet the week after Thanksgiving if we haven't missed any time, so we should be good. All right. If you're not in my dissertation shell, if you'll send me an email and you want to upload your work in my shell for me to help with it, I'll send you the link and you can enroll. If you're already enrolled, make sure you put it under assignment 3, because I have those filters set up like the deans, and we can get a read on where you are on your AI and your similarity. And if you have any flags, we want to make sure all that stuff's cleaned up before you start trying to. We need to get ready to trying to get ready to do proposals as soon as y'all get finished this semester. Um, let's look at that timeline as well. So let me share my screen again. Make sure that we do all of our housekeeping tonight. All right, so if you will go to your handy dandy let me find it. Here it is. Your handy dandy dissertation handbook. And if you will look at, y'all need to know this thing better than I do. In terms of what the process is to propose, all the steps you have to go through. But the big thing to look at is here we go. The first day that you can propose is January the 12th. I mean, no, excuse me. Let me say this again. Let me say it. The first day that you can submit a proposal draft for approval is January the 12th. You can see there's a blackout from December 22nd. So what that means is that's not just you propose. You can't upload until when does the spring semester start? So I must start sometime around the 12th. But we can upload your proposal on January the 12th. And within 2 weeks, we'll hear a decision back from the dean, and hopefully we get a good decision. But you can't submit until then. But that should be the day that you circle on the calendar is you want to have your proposal ready for January the 12th. Get it all cleaned up and ready to go. You propose sometime shortly thereafter, and then you can defend sometime in June, late May or June is the earliest day you can submit for a summer defense is the 26th of May. So the 2 dates that are most important to you right now are January the 12th. That's the day you can submit your proposal. May 26th is the day that you can submit your final. Now you need to read all these rules on proposal right here. Make sure that you've met all of these metrics right here. 19% or less, no AI score, no flags. Chapter 1, 10 pages. Chapter 2, 30 pages. Make sure that over half of your references are modern. That means within the last 5 years. Now, let's talk about that. And I've talked about this before, but again, I'm seeing work that doesn't meet these metrics. What I mean is when you're talking about your foundational or seminal work for your conceptual framework, that stuff will be old like me. It'll be like Hertzberg's from the 50s like me. But the majority of your content areas should be modern research within the last 5 years. So don't fill up your content research on your topic or your lens with old stuff. That's got to be new stuff. Your old stuff is in your conceptual framework section of your literature review. So make sure that you understand that, how that works. Um, chapters 1 through, don't use direct quotes. You can't have more than 3 per chapter. Best advice I have is don't use them at all. Everything else is paraphrased. Chapters 1 through 3, 60 pages. Your chapters 1 through 5, 100. Abstract. He has guidelines for those. If your CITI certification is not up to date, make sure you renew it. You cannot propose or defend, can't propose until your certification is up to date. And you have to actually attach your certificate to your IRB application. So you need to check that. And so to do that, let me go through that again. Simply go to Google and type in CITIIRB, and it'll come up CITI program. You log in to your account, and then My Records, and make sure you get the right one. You want your completion view, print, share, and then you want your completion certificate. And this is what we're looking for right here. Just follow that process and you download that and you paste it onto your IRB application. As you can see, I'm gonna have to update mine during the Christmas holidays for the umpteenth time. So make sure that you've done that. Now, last thing, and I don't know that I've talked about this before. I don't know that this affects anybody here, but if it does, right here, external member application form. If you have an external member from your district, you must complete this form in Qualtrics. Now, that person can only be, let me say this twice, can only be your content person. They cannot be your chair, nor can they be your methodologist. They can only do content.
And Dr. Lamb, do we hear, because I filled that out like 3 weeks ago. Do we hear something back saying the person has been approved, or what's?
You should, but if you don't hear anything, you should be okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And now remember as well that there are metrics now for mixed methods. If you're using mixed methods, you need at least 200 in your sample, and you need at least 100 surveys returned if you're planning to do mixed methods. I've got one from the way back with 70, and I'm not sure it's going to get through, but we'll see. With 70 responses, because that's all the teachers, middle school teachers are in that small district because they only have 70. So that one may get through since there's only 70 middle school teachers in the whole district in Chester, South Carolina. So, I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, Sandy, I mean, how many people work in your whole district? I mean, so it would be hard for Sandy to find a population that she could pull a sample to get 100 out of. I mean, they've only got in Chester School District in Chester, South Carolina, they've only got 70 middle school teachers in the whole district. So doing mixed is now very hard to do. And Carson and I started this rant tonight by talking about if you're doing a qualitative only, which most of you will have to do now, if you're doing a sample that includes teachers and administrators, you need to do a focus group. Don't just keep on doing rounds of interviews with the same people. You need to do a focus group to get their different perspectives. Remember, we're not CNI people. Our audience is not teachers. Our audiences are the district. And if you're going to speak to the district in a superintendent program, you need to have the voice of teachers and principals or administrators. You don't just need to have the voice of teachers. That's a different deal. So make sure that you hit those metrics. We'll talk more about it when we're together in November. We'll talk more about this. But my goal is for all of you to be ready to go the first day, and that we can go in January and get you out by the summer. It costs a lot of money to do dissertation, even if you finish on time. I mean, you're going to have to come up with $1,200 to $1,800 for your. I have one. Let me see. This is the cheapest. I might have showed you this already. This is the cheapest one that I've had recently by far. Let's see. I always have them tell me what it cost. Hers costs $1,100. That's the cheapest one I've had. Is the editor costs $1,100, and that's the cheapest one. I told you I have one that costs $2,200. Most of them are running $1,200 to $1,600, and for every semester that you go past the 63 credit hours of the program, they're going to charge you another $2,000 plus each semester that you're in dissertation continuing. They're going to charge you 3 credit hours, and a credit hour is roughly what, $700 now? So that's $2,100 plus fees. So, our goal is first day that you can upload it for approval, but we're ready to go. And the first day that you can upload your final for approval, we're ready to go. I've got a link that I can send you to a discount place on your regalia. It's very nice. I've had students buy it. It costs us a fourth of what Jostens does. That'll save you about $600 or $700. Jostens is, I think their regalia is what, $800 now or $900. I can get you good regalia that nobody will ever know the difference for $200. Because it gets really expensive at the end of this thing, especially if you're going to have to run over and hit $2,100, $2,200 a semester on cost overruns on the hours. So it's going to be bad enough as it is. Let's do everything we can not to be running into next fall, not be running into $2,000 editing bills, $800 or $900 regalia. We charge too much already. And it's at some point you have to pay this money back, or you got to make it back up. It's the short term where it gets really tight money wise, and so we'll do all I can to help you on that. All right, it's good to see everybody tonight. I see my time is up. I appreciate you joining me this evening. It's always good to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Good night.